Good morning, boys and girls. Welcome to worship. It's good to be together again. It's good to be worshiping. I didn't get a lot of response on my poll on the Facebook page about which story to tell this week. I said we would be doing stories that Jesus told, parables. But I did get 3, but they each got 1 vote, so that means I had to choose. And I decided to choose the one that our children's minister, Sam, voted for, because after all, he is our children's minister. And then he told me that the reason that he chose the parable of the Good Samaritan, which is what we're going to have in a few moments, was because his name is Sam. And he just thought that the Good Samaritan, when he was a little boy, Sam Ayrton, had something to do with Sam, with him. So I kind of like that reason. So that's why we'll have that story today. And I also heard from some friends that our friend Reagan has been watching the parables with her grandmother last week, and now back with her mom and her little brother Phineas and her little sister Penny are watching. So hi Reagan and Phineas and Penny, and I hope that some of my other friends are watching too. I realized that we hadn't had out on the altar our quarter tube, and it's kind of, we have the goal to fill it by the end of the year, but without me meeting together and without your quarters, it looks kind of sad. When we get back together, I hope you remember to bring lots of quarters, and then we'll ask our friend Caden to tell us exactly why we're collecting quarters. We're gonna buy a pig, and Caden can tell you why. As we begin to worship, the first thing, of course, that we do formally is light our candle. I know you know why we light the candle. We light this candle today, like every Sunday, to remind us that when Jesus calls us together for worship, even if he calls us together over the internet, that he's with us in a very special way, different from the times that he's with us all the time. And so as we come together in the presence of Jesus, let's also see where we are on our church calendar. It's white behind me, so what season is it? We know if it's white, it's either the season of Christmas or the season of Easter. And it is, of course, the season of Easter in the spring. We know that underneath these puzzle pieces, we have a dot for every Sunday of the year, and that today we're in the season of Easter. Oh, you can't see it, but there's a butterfly there to remind us of spring and new life. And in this butterfly season of Easter, we are on the 4th Sunday, 1, 2, 3, 4. It'll soon be Ascension Sunday, when we celebrate the time that Jesus left the apostles, left his disciples behind to join his Father in heaven. And that during the Easter season, between the resurrection and the ascension, we usually tell stories that happened during that 40-day period. We also remember that during this time, the disciples and others were gathered together. When they gathered together, they probably talked about some of the stories that Jesus told them. Today's story, the Good Samaritan, is a parable, like most of Jesus' stories. And we talked about how a parable's like a gift. It's a present from Jesus. And just like any present, it's pretty on the outside, it's really nice, but the really good stuff is usually on the inside. And we have to unwrap it, and we have to sort of do a little work to find the very best parts of the story or of a parable. This parable is different than many of Jesus's parables, because most of the time when Jesus told a parable, he told it to a whole crowd of people that were watching or listening. But in this case, it's a parable that happened when a rich young man came to Jesus and asked him what he needed to do to be saved. And Jesus told him, "You know the law, you know what the prophets say. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. And you should love your neighbor as yourself. And the rich young man, who was very learned in the law, said, but who is my neighbor? And then Jesus told him a parable. The story of the Good Samaritan is another one of Jesus' parables found in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 10. So many of my favorite stories are in the Gospel of Luke. Let's open the parable and see what pieces come in this gift. A certain man was walking one day from Jerusalem down to the the city of Jericho. As he was walking, robbers came up and they beat him up and they hurt him badly. He was bloody, hurt. They took everything that he had and they left him by the side of the road, thinking that he was dead. And then they ran away. A little later, one of the priests from the temple in Jerusalem was walking along the road. As he was walking along the road, he saw the man there, all bloody and broken. And he thought he was dead. Maybe, I don't know. But he said, that's unclean. I can't touch that. I'm a priest. He went to the other side of the road and left him there. And then, a while after that, one of the teachers of the law, a Levite, he was walking down the road. He saw the man there. He thought, I don't really know how to do anything to help people like that. I'm a teacher of the law. And he just kept walking. And then soon after that, a man from the province of Samaria came away, walking along. Now Samaria was nearby to where the Jewish people lived. But the people who lived in Samaria, called Samaritans, and the Jewish people who lived in Jerusalem had different ideas about how best to worship God. And they barely talked to each other. So as this Samaritan was walking down the road and saw the Jewish man all hurt and bloody, what do you think he did? This Samaritan man decided that he would try to help. And he went to the man. He saw that he was still alive. And he took his own clothes and he tore off some of the parts of his cape, and he turned them into bandages so he could stop the man's bleeding. And they helped him onto his donkey, and he carried him back to Jerusalem to an inn. And he told the innkeeper, can you help him, please? Just give him a place to stay, get a doctor to him. Here's all the money I have with me, and then when I come back next week, if it's cost any more, I'll pay you that money. After Jesus had given the gift of the parable to the young lawyer learned in the law, Jesus turned to him and asked him, which of these three do you think was a neighbor to the man who was in trouble? And the man who had asked Jesus what he needed to do to be saved thought about this gift, and he said, I suppose It was the one who helped him when he was in trouble. Jesus told him, yes, and you should go and do likewise. Do this, and you will be saved.